In 2005, I got sick, and the backstory is that I write books, I lead workshops, and I have a pretty large social media following in this space. In 2005, I got sick. I went to see a doctor about my heart, and he essentially said that my stress levels and my diet were killing me, and that as a doctor, he was going to prescribe some pills that would help regulate my heartbeat, and that he didn't really have an explanation for it other than that. But as a father and as a citizen, he would suggest that I look into it. At this time, I would label myself unawake. At that moment, anger, all kinds of stuff came up for me.
Naturally.
And so my ex-girlfriend, girlfriend at the time, she told her mother. Her mother said, "Preston, I know you're dyslexic, so I know you don't read much, but there's a book called Ask and It Is Given by Jerry and Esther Hicks, and I think that maybe it could support you." And so I opened that book, and I think I got 8 pages in, and I dropped it on the ground, and I was like, what the hell is this? No one's ever said any of this to me. My mom doesn't know this, my dad doesn't know this, I never heard it. I have 2 college degrees, and I've never heard any of this stuff. And I went through a process. So now I'm going to skip to, even in this moment, I raised my hand. I was probably the last person to raise my hand, or one of them. And I keep experiencing myself being called forward, even when I'm not necessarily, like, asking for it.
Oh, you're asking.
Yeah.
You're asking, but your intellectual focus sort of mutes the asking so that you can't feel you're asking as much as someone who's not being muted can feel it.
Mm.
Sort of in your own way a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Not much, a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. So my wife and I lead workshops, and one of the things, and this is a question I have for myself now because I'm in some ways questioning my work. We teach and support people in looking at children and seeing how children are not in resistance to what is, and that when anger shows up, they experience anger to its fullness, and then anger finds its way out because it's being allowed to be experienced. And when I'm studying you, which I have done, I keep hearing this, follow the good. And I've watched myself teaching people that, or expressing that it just is all as isness. And being with what is the good.
If someone is talking to you about a child who is in the moment angry,
Mm-hmm.
what is your advice?
We use the child playing on a swing as the metaphor. So the kid's playing on the swing. Tommy steals the swing. The kid runs back to the mom and says, "Tommy stole my swing." Goes through the experience of anger, betrayal, sadness, whatever it is. And then 30 minutes later, that kid is playing with Tommy again on the swing.
So your point is they get over it easily,
Yes.
that they have a knee-jerk reaction to it, but
Yeah.
what's the bigger thing that you're saying?
I have literally told people, don't follow the good. Don't try to chase good all the time, but just be with what is. In some ways, what I hear from your teachings is something different. And my question is that, am I leading people off a cliff?
Well, that's the reason that we were asking the question, because this is something that, as you hear it, we think that it will give you some immediate resolution. As we talk about the emotional scale, the better you feel, the more in alignment with who you are. And when children are playing, they are really in alignment with who they are. We've been talking already here today how lovely it is to be reaching for that alignment rather than reacting to what's going on around you. And yet, in this world of contrast and in this world of so many others, there are plenty of things that occur to which you are likely to react. So sometimes you react in a way that your inner being would not. But that's how you learn what your inner being knows, and that's how you find your path of alignment to joy and all of those things. Negative emotion is not a bad thing. It's guidance. It's like when you put your hand on the hot stove, it's good that your hand recognizes that it's hot. You wouldn't want to put Novocaine in your hand and ignore the fact that the stove is hot, because you want the reaction which will ultimately serve you. And so This is the thing that we most want to say about the child's reaction. So feeling good, like happy is feeling good, clarity is feeling good, passion is feeling good, understanding is feeling good, frustration doesn't feel so good, and overwhelmment doesn't feel so good, and anger doesn't feel so good, and resentment really doesn't feel good, and blame really doesn't feel good, and guilt really doesn't feel good, and anger doesn't feel good, and revenge feels a little better because it feels like you're doing something about it. It feels like you're more in control. And so here are all of these emotions, and we're just encouraging that you reach for the feeling that feels best, because the more you reach for the feeling that feels best, then the better off you are. Today we were explaining step 1, contrast is going to cause you to ask, and you ask for things you don't even know you're asking for. Step 2, source answers, and step 3 is you've got to line up with what you're asking for, and step 4 is mastering that, and step 5 is not being mad at yourself when you're angry, which is the very thing that you're talking about. Step 5 is understanding that this is helping you in the deciphering process, because not only do you, as a source energy being who is flowing through this child, not only do you not want someone to take something away from you, you don't want them to be so disconnected from their source energy that they would even want to take something away from you. So that emotion is always your guidance that lets you know that you're seeing it different than the source within you sees it, you see. We think that a book about children or a course about children, letting children be the teachers that they are, because children do all of those things so much better than adults do. Because as you say, they have the knee-jerk response of knowing that something doesn't feel good, that their inner being is seeing it different. But in their immaturity, and by immaturity we don't mean immaturity in their little bodies not yet growing up, we mean vibrational, emotional immaturity in not yet understanding that emotion is telling you that you are divergent from what your inner being knows about this. As children are having those experiences, they are much less divergent than adults are. So there are many things we like in your story. First, the child didn't like it and went to mother. Now what happens next is a big part of this story, because if mother gets all animated about it and mother carries the flag of injustice that the child has started and gets that momentum going even further, now you got a big deal. Now the playground's in uproar. Now mothers are mad at themselves. All kinds of things begin to happen, and bombs start dropping before very long. That's not so different from the things that are going on in the games that adults are playing. But if this child is left to his own devices, if he is having the experience where he didn't like it that someone for whatever reason took his swing away, and this other one didn't really take his swing away because it wasn't his swing to begin with. The other might have even believed that there should be sharing in the playground. He might have been hogging the swing. There are a lot of different sides to this story. So this little one who wants the swing, and now this one feels deprived of the swing, and it doesn't matter whether there's a real injustice or not. There's a perceived injustice, and there was a perceived injustice by the one who got the swing taken away, and there was a perceived injustice by the one who took the swing away because he wanted to swing on the swing and wasn't being allowed to swing on the swing. But the most important part of the story is they all got over it, and easily, because, unless mothers inflamed it, got over it because their capacity and desire to love is far greater than their capacity and desire to hate. And so that's really the powerful message in that. And no, you're not leading anyone off a cliff. That's what step 5 is. That's what we're talking about. Yes, of course it's natural that you would have a reaction to something that you don't want. But once you're tuned to this source energy on a really regular basis, it helps you put things into their priorities. It helps you know that you are ultimately a lover. And while things happen that you don't like, it's not wrong of you not to like it. It's part of the step 1 process. But once you gain control of your ability to return to love so easily, that's what children do that adults forget that they can do. They want to make the issue a big issue. They want to take it to the Supreme Court. They want others to agree with them because they don't trust that the love within them is enough guidance. They want more powerful acknowledgement from more people, and that's what gets it off. And that's what the children, for the most part, haven't yet learned. And wouldn't it be wonderful if they never did learn that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Really good.
Mm-hmm.
Really good. We have enjoyed this a lot. You are powerful creators. And can you feel the more steady resonance within you now than even at the beginning of the day? Don't you know that well-being abounds? And aren't you eager to just ride that energy of well-being and watch the surprises and delights that your inner being will show you along the way? Be really easy about it and playful. Your vortices are full of what you want to call potential that we know is reality. And we can see it flowing to you. And we know the outcomes of what you all have going on. Just going to knock your socks off as you allow it to come. But in the meanwhile, just chill out. Just chill out and allow more of it to show itself to you today. There is great love here for you. And as always, we remain in your vortex.